Welcome back to Newsmax Now. The first official visit from a Canadian Prime Minister in almost 20 years. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau arrived at the White House with his wife. President Obama welcomed the opportunity to improve the relationship with the United States' closest ally. Here's some fun facts that you can break out on some Boxing Day in the future. There's $2 billion a day in goods and services are traded between our two countries. About 300,000 people cross the north border every day. Our defensive arrangements with Canada are more extensive than any other country. We share membership in both the United Nations, NATO, the World Trade Organization, G7, and G20. And we also invest in each other's countries. The U.S. is the biggest investor in Canada, and Canada is the third largest investor in the U.S. So there you have it. But things haven't always been so rosy between us and our neighbors to the north. Believe it or not, President Obama rejected, remember this, the Keystone XL pipeline, which would have transported heavy Canadian oil inside the United States. Prime Minister Trudeau promised to pull out 6 fighter jets in the U.S.-led coalition against ISIS.
All right, Miranda, thanks for that. Not that plane, though. Joining us now to make the case for why Canada is important, or maybe make the case why it's not so important, Rick Ungar, Forbes columnist and host of SiriusXM's Steele Ungar show, which airs every night from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the POTUS channel. Rick, thanks for being here.
Hey?
I knew you were going to do that.
I'm getting my Canada going.
All right,
Don't you know?
Don't be a hoser, Rick, all right?
Miranda just said everything I ever knew about Canada. I got nothing now. See?
Nothing? Really? Oh, come on. I'm not buying it.
All right, maybe the press wasn't buying this as a big deal either, because during the news conference today, President Obama was asked about his responsibility for the current Republican presidential race, and particularly its frontrunner, Donald Trump. Take a listen.
What I'm not going to do is to validate some notion that the Republican crack-up that's been taking place is a consequence of actions that I've taken.
So the question was basically, Mr. President, how do you feel about those who say Donald Trump's rise is because of your policies in Washington, D.C.? Before we get to the Canadian business, what do you think about that question and the way the president handled it, Rick?
He answered it honestly. I think it's a crazy idea to imagine that Donald Trump has anything to do with this president or any president that came before.
You know what? This all comes from the idea that some Republicans or Democrats say if you don't like Barack Obama, the only person you have to blame is George W. Bush, who gave rise to Barack Obama. But it's all part of circular logic.
I don't blame George. I just don't see them as connected. In fact, you know, one of the big surprises of the Obama administration is that certain areas, he really continued a lot of the Bush policies.
He did. And when we look at history years from now, there will be a lot of similarities between both those presidencies. And we talk about this relationship now. Justin Trudeau takes the reins there in Canada, the first Liberal Prime Minister of that nation in some 10 years. There are a lot of comparisons between Trudeau and Barack Obama. Rick, what do you think about that? He's seen as the next generation, a leader for today, the 21st century. Is Justin Trudeau a transformational figure?
He could be. I mean, to the extent that, and I don't say this in any demeaning way or funny, to the extent that a Canadian Prime Minister can be. I will tell you this, I remember his father very well. And his father was transformational because he had that same, he was just so unusual for a world leader. He's kind of a playboy image, although he was married at the time to a lady, Justin's mother, who was very attractive. She used to hang out with the Rolling Stones and people like that. So they were this young, fresh, something that Canada had just never seen. And they caught on. It's the only time that I can recall when people in America actually knew who the Prime Minister was in Canada. I think the same thing's going to happen with his son, Justin. Now, people will at least know who the PM is.
Do you think, though, I mean, in all fairness, it's like Canada, it's like people kind of look at it like, well, you're kind of part of the United States, even though you're really not. Like, no one
even
really
John
pays
Kerry,
that close attention.
Even John Kerry said Canadians aren't foreigners, they're our neighbors, they're our friends, they're like us.
Except if you're Ted Cruz. That could be a completely different story there. But are you hopeful, Rick, that relationships will improve between the United States and Canada, since they have been a little bumpy?
I didn't even go for the Ted Cruz joke. I was thinking about it.
It's too easy, low-hanging fruit.
It's too easy, yeah. Look, you know what? You have to put everything into perspective. Yeah, you have an occasional disagreement here and there. I think we had one over Steele or something a few years ago. But all in all, you can't really call the Canadian-U.S. relationship anything but a terrific relationship. I mean,
an important one. We can call it an important one, and a lot of people, it's one I think a lot of people take for granted, which is why we kind of wanted to highlight this today.
But see, what I find so shocking is that Americans seem to have so much trouble with their neighbor to the south, Mexico, and yet they never even think about Canada. And you're right, John. They are they are the third largest investor in our country. Our top trading partner, Mexico, by the way, is number 2. Mm-hmm. These are important countries to us, and yet we treat one of them like they're not there, and we treat the other one like we wish they wouldn't be there.
It's true. It's the NIMBYs, not in our backyard. A lot. That's the mentality a lot of folks have. Rick Ungar, always great to see you. You can catch him on SiriusXM Radio, 6 to 9 p.m. on Channel 124 on POTUS. Rick, great to see you.
See you soon.
All right, make sure you stay tuned tonight, too, for live post-debate coverage. A lot on the line, especially for Marco Rubio tonight. We'll have the analysis immediately following the debate right here on Newsmax TV. Stay tuned.